Hey guys, it's Evan. The other day, or the last video, I read Threefold, um, Section 1, Part 2, and today I'm going to read Part 3. So, get your listening ears ready, and here we go. Akura watched Junio place his firearm in his holster and walk toward her. He paid no attention to Hugo as he examined her chains. He placed a hand on them and channeled a bolt of lightning to break them off. He stared into her eyes. Akura saw that he was angry with her. She had communicated with him via her mind since she had arrived in the prison. As a telepath, if Akura shared a strong link with those closest to her, they could channel their thoughts toward her and she could hear them. Why did you let them capture you? Was it for him? Akura listened to his thoughts. She watched his eyes glance toward Hugo for a moment. No, I let them capture me because I feel responsible for Kotaro's death. I blame myself. She channeled her thoughts to him. You are not to blame. I know the truth. Junio's thoughts didn't surprise her. He thought this might happen long ago. Hugo gathered from the silence that followed they were speaking with each other telepathically, so he stayed silent for a bit, but because they were still in the prison, they needed to go. Guards ran through the destroyed barriers. After seeing the CO dispatched, they fired their Phison weapons. Hugo used the remains of his first three barriers to create two more. He started to see clearly and the pain started to pass. He struggled to his feet. He stood in front of the siblings. He felt unwell, but he'd manage. He turned to Junio and Akura as the guards fired at his barriers. He watched as Junio focused on him. He noticed the hard expression on his face. Junio nodded. Hugo believed his thanks before he headed onto the lift. After witnessing Junio's use of thunder and lightning, Hugo saw he was strong. He'll lead the way, Akura said. Hugo had no problem with that. He followed, walking beside Akura. As they boarded the lift, the guards demolished Hugo's barrier. Junio placed his hand on the control panel, and with a jolt of lightning, he took the lift out of its lockdown mode. He pushed two buttons, which caused the lift doors to close and the lift to descend. For a short while, silence settled into the air. Akura broke it. We'll be in this lift a while. We can relax a bit. Will you be okay? I know you were hit with Phison earlier. I'll be fine, Hugo said. The effects are wearing off. I notice you speak Lunese almost fluently, Akura said. I've met few people outside of Lunastra who can. I planned on coming to Lunastra since I was in high school, Hugo said, although I never thought it would be under the circumstances that brought me here. Jackson, Akura said. Correct, Hugo said. So you do know him, Akura. Who are you? And how do you know him? Sugashima Akura, she answered him. The woman he sent you after. I'm a good friend of his. We met some years ago. Was he with you these past 5 years? Any questions you have about him, you'll have to ask him yourself, Akura said. I can't answer your questions. I won't. But I can tell you why I was imprisoned. They knew each other, had possibly known each other over the past 5 years. Jackson had been gone. Akura wouldn't answer his questions, but he figured this much might be true. Jackson had sent him after Akura, even though Junio was coming after her. Had Jackson known about Junio? What was Jackson and Akura's connection? He understood he would only get answers from Jackson in Lunaria. He had decided to head for Lunaria. Akura's words only confirmed what he needed to do. You brought it together nicely, Akura said and added a short smile. He wouldn't ask any more questions concerning Jackson, but he wanted to hear her story. He hoped choosing to help her escape hadn't been a mistake. It wasn't. I'll explain myself. Before she spoke again, she stopped. Hugo turned his attention on Junio, who leaned against the lift and didn't pay them any attention. When Akira had glanced in Junio's direction, Hugo knew Junio had stopped her from saying anything. You probably don't trust me, Hugo said, speaking to Junio. That's okay, I understand. He gave his attention back to Akira. You don't have to tell me anything. You don't know me. I don't have any evidence that you're innocent, but I believe you are. Something about your containment didn't seem right. Plus, you know Jackson. He was always a good judge of character. If you help me get out of here, I can get answers from him about this whole situation. You do not have to explain yourself. Akira had heard Junio's thought. We'll get you out of here, Akira said, knowing that Hugo realized that her brother had communicated with her. Although, before you head to Lunaria, I want to speak with you in private. Will you come with us? Akira's request puzzled Junio. Hugo saw her glance in his direction a second time. If Junio won't mind, I'll follow you, Hugo said, glancing at Junio. Junio listened to their exchange for a moment before he commented. You sound as if you knew you would meet with him. Guilt might have been one reason, but you let them capture you to bring me here. I expect you will explain why. Akira brought another short smile to her face. I need to speak with you in private as well. I'll explain myself then. Hugo remembered what Akira had said earlier. Jackson said you'd do this. Had Jackson planned for him to escape with her? He told him to save her, but she didn't need saving. He was supposed to go with her. From everything that had transpired, that idea seemed right. He's fine with it, Akira said. I wanted to hear it from him, Hugo said. Junio didn't say anything, but turned his gaze on Hugo. Seeing Junio's face left Hugo with a chill, even though the Stetson that he wore hid half of it. Junio's face held the same hard expression Hugo had seen earlier, but Hugo noticed Junio had dark brown eyes like his sister. The same as hers in the way they seemed to exude gentleness, a calm. Junio turned away from Hugo. Hugo took this as a sign he had no intention of answering him. His mind probably occupied with other thoughts, such as the reasons behind Akira's actions. By the way, Hugo began, I'm Hugo. Akira knows who I am. She seems to know quite a bit about me, but you don't. I'd tell you my last name, but unlike Akira, the CO doesn't know who I am, and I want to keep it that way. I'm not sure what they might be able to pick up in this lift. Understandable, Akira said. Instead, I'll tell you how I ended up here, if you don't already know, Hugo said, glancing at Akira. She shook her head, indicating Junio didn't. Hugo kept his attention on Junio. If you believe me, maybe you'll start to trust me. Junio and Akira had similarities, but they had their differences. Although not by much, Junio had a darker complexion than Akira. He had wild, neck-length black hair, noticeably bushy eyebrows, and sideburns that reached past his ears into a mild beard, mustache, and goatee. Junio was a strongly built man, bigger than him and taller than both he and Akira. Actually, Hugo said, we better wait. I agree, Akira said. After we escape, we'll have a chance to talk. Junio was curious about how and why Hugo had gotten involved with her. He waited to hear Hugo's story. Akira knew that about Junio. He liked to have the facts. You were curious, weren't you? Akira asked her brother. He didn't respond, but Akira smiled with the thought that you couldn't hide anything from an empath. Junio stopped the lift. When the doors open, I will handle the guards. You two will stay in here until I clear our path. Akira heard Junyo's thoughts and relayed the message to Hugo. Hugo watched Junyo stand at the doors. He began to wonder why Junyo wouldn't speak to him. He wondered if Junyo had a problem with Solaresians. He doesn't. Why won't he speak then? Hugo asked. He has his reasons. Hugo glanced her way for a second before turning back to Junyo. You're strong. Probably stronger than me, Hugo said. Even if that's the case, I'm headed out there with you, if only to watch your back. I don't think Akira would want to see you overwhelmed. Hugo glanced at Akira. She and he waited for some kind of response. Junyo nodded without looking at him. Hugo noticed something hanging from Junyo's neck. Junyo had a chain with a crest at the end of it like he did. Junyo had a silver chain while he had a white gold one, and they each had a different crest. His crest contained the Ujat symbol, while Junyo's contained the yin-yang symbol. Hugo had never met someone else with one. He had gotten his from his father, who said their family had passed it down through the years. Was it the same for Junyo? Junyo opened the doors, and a beam of light along with Faison projectiles came at them. Akira leaned against the side of the lift. Junyo dived out and to his left, and Hugo jumped out the lift and hit the floor. He lowered the stones underneath him. Hugo, lying on his back underneath the action, pulled stones from the ceiling to see. He pushed up parts of the ceiling to create barriers for Junyo and Akira to use to get across the corridor. He did this while guards fired at him from above. He maneuvered himself out of the projectile's line of sight. The guards shuffled and evaded him every time he tried to remove the stones underneath them. He guessed they had wised up when it came to his dropping trick. Akira could have helped. She could have easily handled the guards, but instead, she waited to watch Junyo and Hugo fight together. She felt their stress and heard their thoughts. Even though he didn't want to fight, Hugo realized if they were to get out, they had to go through the guards. Junyo didn't want Hugo fighting alongside him. He wanted to get Akira out of this hell the warden had created to stop he and her, but he didn't want Hugo to become a target because of them. They do fine. Akira, follow me, she heard Junyo say. She peered from the lift and went to his side. Akira watched Junyo. He saw the barriers Hugo created and used them as cover. After she reached his side safely, she watched him go on the offensive. Go to the next barrier, he instructed. He stood up and unleashed lightning on the 15 guards in the corridor. She hurried to the next barrier, but she made the guards think they didn't see her. Some of the guards Junyo attacked fell unconscious from his jolts, and others protected themselves by taking cover. She and Junyo had seen a beam of light come at them when they were inside the lift, but they couldn't find the CO. Keep going. Make it to the lift. She heard Junyo's thoughts and listened to his instructions. She came from behind her barrier, keeping herself safe, and watched as he walked from behind his barrier. He took his firearm into his left hand, compressed air into it, and unleashed explosive thunder on the guards. They fired Faison energy at him, but he used lightning to make sure their shots didn't hit their targets. When he saw she reached the lift, he made his way toward it himself. Tired of the guards shooting at him, Hugo lifted a part of the ceiling and returned to the previous level. Before he ducked for cover, he saw the guards were busy handling Junyo. Junyo walked through the chaos with ear-splitting thunder explosions and wild lightning. Guards and debris flew through the air. To protect the remaining guards, Hugo used the walls to cover and block them against the walls. Junyo walked past Hugo while placing his firearm in its holster. Hugo turned to see Akira standing near the lift. Watching Junyo, a question came to mind. Was he taking his anger out on the guards, or trying to make sure he kept Akira safe? It was both. Junyo opened the lift doors and they got on the lift. They traveled down a few levels before Junyo stopped it. When they stepped off, they saw the CO standing alone in front of stairs, which led downward. Should we go another way? Hugo asked Akira under his breath. No, Akira whispered. We have to go this way. Junyo needs to face him. Hugo watched Junyo walk toward the CO. He stayed behind with Akira. Did Akira have a plan for Junyo like the one Jackson seemed to have for him? It looked that way. I guess we won't want any interruptions, Hugo said as he blocked off the lift and stairs. Thank you, Akira said. You made it this far, the CO said, watching Hugo and Akira. No doubt because of Junyo. I always thought he would have made a fine officer. Hugo's eyes shifted from the CO to Akira. He's speaking to you, she said. With a surprised expression on his face, Hugo took a few steps toward Junyo and the CO. Sir, Hugo said, Mr. Minamoto, I mean you no disrespect, but we're only trying to escape because we're innocent. I have to find out who the killer was, and... Hugo turned to Akira, feeling out of the loop and a bit confused. Akira didn't say anything. She stared at the back of Junyo. She has to avoid being falsely accused and punished, Junyo said. Hugo barely heard Junyo's words, but just hearing Junyo's voice surprised him. He sounded as if part of his mouth had been wired shut and spoke as if he might rage. No prisoners have ever escaped under my watch, the CO told Hugo while watching Junyo. I'm sorry to say this, Hugo said, but this might have to be the first time. Do you have her? Hugo heard an unfamiliar, unnerving voice through a walkie-talkie, but Junyo, Akira, and the CO appeared to recognize it. No, sir, the CO answered. Hugo assumed the voice belonged to the warden. Get her into this office, he said. I don't care if you have to get rid of Junyo or that criminal to do it. She must be punished. Yes, sir. The CO stared at the ground. Akira was about to speak for herself, but Hugo noticed Junyo surprised her when he spoke instead. You are working for him, Junyo said. You are obeying his orders. You have known us for most of our lives, and you trust him over us? The CO looked from Junyo to Akira. I'm sorry, he said. Criminals cannot go free. No one else will suffer under my watch. He pulled a double-barrel firearm from its holster. Do you want to fight me, Junyo, when you know you'll lose? He pointed his weapon at Junyo, and their eyes met. Hugo watched as Junyo didn't move, and he figured from their exchange that Junyo wasn't going to move. Even though Junyo had sent him flying earlier, Hugo sensed this meeting between them was different. He shouldn't get involved, but he would anyway. From the look she gave him, Akira knew he would too. As the CO prepared to fire 2 streams of light from his weapon, Hugo pulled stones from the ceiling, walls, and floor to assemble a stone column around the CO. Seeing the column brought Junyo back, from where Hugo assumed his thoughts or memories of the past. Hugo deconstructed the block he had placed on the stairs. We're getting out of here, Hugo said to Akira. Junyo, Akira called his name. Hugo and Akira made for the exit, but Junyo dived to his right as 2 parallel streams of light tore through the column. A flash of light produced a light screen which repelled Hugo. The CO stepped from the debris toward Akira and Hugo. Junyo pulled his firearm from its holster. Takashi! Junyo called him out as he fired his weapon, got up, and ran toward him. Hearing Junyo shout like that caught everyone's attention. Takashi protected himself from the thunder with a light screen, but moments later, Junyo tackled him. Hugo realized the CEO used a second screen to prevent abilities while the other prevented physical attacks. Junior probably knew that because they'd known each other in the past. Akira went for the stairs while Hugo got to his feet. Junior grabbed Takashi's firearm, got away from him, and shot him with it. Hugo. Junior turned to him. Hugo turned to Junior. Akira watched them from the entryway. After their eyes met, Junior turned to Takashi. Takashi scrambled to get on his feet through his pain. Hugo knew what Junior wanted him to do, and Takashi dropped through the floor. Hugo saw Junior watch Takashi fall before he dropped Takashi's firearm to him through the hole Hugo created. After Junior turned toward him, Hugo repaired it. Junior nodded his thanks toward Hugo. He disappeared down the stairs as Hugo jogged to Akira's side. They followed Junior. After going down the stairs for a while, Hugo noticed he hadn't seen any guards on Takashi's level, nor heard any nearby. Had Junior taken out the video cameras earlier so the guards couldn't find them? Was Takashi Junior and Akira's father? He decided that was a question to ask after they escaped. Junior led them to a dead end, or so Hugo thought, until Junior bent down to the right of them and lifted part of the wall. Akira grabbed Hugo's arm and walked with him before Junior came through and closed off the hidden tunnel. Even though he knew he wouldn't be able to do it, Hugo thought about lighting their way. Junior sparked lightning across one of his hands to find a stick and use it as a torch. He led the way with his lightning after lighting the torch and handing it to Akira. Hugo, Junior, and Akira traveled through the damp tunnel for a while. They encountered some of the cave's creatures. Hugo had only read about them, native Lunastrian animals, which proved helpful when they attacked. Once they approached a second dead end, Junior lifted part of the wall. Hugo and Akira walked into the moonlit night, and Junior followed them after closing off the tunnel. Hugo found himself in a dark, dense forest. It reminded him of a camping trip he had taken a few years back. Hugo stood and took in the sight, smell, and sounds. Junior walked past him, and Hugo glanced back at the prison, a large structure built into the side of a mountain. Akira pulled him along. He had never done something like that. He had never had to escape from a prison. Was it wrong for him to have enjoyed the escape? He pushed that thought from his head. Junior doesn't want to take any chances the guards discover we escaped, Akira told him as she pulled him through the forest. We're sure the guards are still searching the prison. You're probably right, Hugo said, letting Akira pull him. I believe Takashi thought we would never leave. Junior led them, and they hurried in silence for a few miles. Where are we headed? Hugo finally asked after a second period of silence. Our home in Calcedea, Akira answered, not that he expected to hear anything from Junior. Wouldn't going there be dangerous? If the guards suspect we did escape, that would be the first place they'd look for us, for you. I'm not worried about it, Akira said. You shouldn't worry about it either. We aren't staying long. Remember, you have somewhere to be. Hugo gave her a questioning look, knowing what she meant and wondering what she wasn't telling him. Something she said caught his attention. What do you mean, we? He asked. She didn't answer. You're not going to tell me. Calcedea is right outside this forest, Akira said, so we should arrive soon. We'll get some food in you, and afterward, we'll have our chat. Akira changed the subject. Hugo heard the word food. Remembering he was starving, he decided not to push the issue further. He took in the cool night air. Traveling as an escaped prisoner might be difficult, but he didn't care about that now. Having a home-cooked meal and something to wash it down with made him grin. He felt as if an hour passed before Junior disappeared into some deep brush. Akira pulled him through it. She led him onto a cobbled road until they reached a large stone bridge. Welcome to Calcadea, Akura said. Hugo saw how the moon cast its light on the small town and the river that traveled through it. All right, that was part 3. Still kind of long. I thought it would be shorter, but it wasn't. Thanks for tuning in. Tomorrow you'll get part 4. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, let me know. And I would love and appreciate anything you have to say or write. All right, talk to you later. Bye.